Good morning. Welcome to the morning forecast discussion for October 28th, 2011. It's a Friday, and we have a major storm on the way for tomorrow. Now, there's a lot of hype about this upcoming storm. People running around saying it's going to snow down to I-95 and all this other nonsense. Let's get down to reality, ladies and gentlemen. It's late October, and this is a higher elevation snowstorm. And when I say snowstorm, I'm talking about 3 to 6 inches for most locations. So let's dive into the data and really break this down. First of all, let's take note of the surface conditions. Zoom in here, and you can see they have temperatures for the most part in the mid to upper 30s. It's Friday morning at 6:34 a.m. and lower 30s over portions of Connecticut. Notice we really don't have any, extremely cold temperatures that are below freezing, or many temperatures that are below freezing. Your below freezing temperatures in the morning hours are in the upper 20s over portions of interior New York, upstate New York, as they like to call it. Even in northeastern Pennsylvania, temperatures are above freezing. Now, normally, not a big deal, not something to really worry about because it's October, no problem. But when we're talking about a snowstorm, the fact that your air mass ahead of this storm in the morning hours for your lows are generally above freezing for most locations, even in the interior, is an important observation to make, especially when you're dealing with wet snowfall. You'll see why in just a moment. Taking a look at the surface conditions, you'll see high pressure is in control and in charge, providing excellent weather conditions for today. Clear skies for most locations, light winds. Temperatures are cool, definitely below normal for this time of year, struggling in the 50s. But at the very least, we're dry, at least for now. Taking a look at the radar, you can see our storm is starting to develop in the Mississippi River Valley. It is starting to pull in moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, and this moisture will streak towards the Carolinas, up towards Virginia, and eventually move into the northern mid-Atlantic, the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan areas by tomorrow morning, let's say about 9-10 a.m., and then expand on to the northeast throughout the rest of the day. Now, the water vapor satellite picture is pretty interesting. This disturbance is getting very strong. This moisture is from what's left of Tropical Storm Rina. Tropical Storm is getting torn apart from strong shear, and this moisture is going to be entrained into this low pressure system and dragged right up the coast. And that is going to produce very heavy rainfall. It's also going to warm up the mid levels just a bit, especially off the coast. And that is yet another important factor to this entire forecast. Why? Because we're dealing with a marginal cold air mass to support snowfall in the air, much less on the ground. So that means that our snowflakes will likely be rather large, rather wet, and as a result, when they fall to the ground, if your ground temperature is even slightly above freezing, it will be very difficult to accumulate. And that is the key point here. You might see snow in the air, even down as far south as the New Jersey coast, but it likely won't accumulate. In fact, it won't accumulate for any location below 500 feet. That's an important note to take with this storm. Because your boundary layer, your surface conditions are still too warm. It is late October, and this storm is happening predominantly in the afternoon. Those factors matter when you're dealing with the idea of accumulating snowfall. I just also want to bring up the point of our air mass over North America just to see whether we have any really strong, powerful cold air masses in place. And you can see at the surface, the coldest temperatures you have are pretty much in Canada. It's up to 40 degrees in portions of the Hudson Bay. This is not a terribly cold air mass for October. It is below normal, but it's not something that would, say, drop your ground temperature from the 40s to below 32 degrees in a fast manner. Now, above 500 feet, totally different story, but below 500 feet, it matters, okay? This is a major observation here. You have to understand what type of air mass is in place before you start forecasting snowfall amounts. So let's go look at the forecast here. Okay, for today, excellent weather conditions, dry, comfortable. Temperatures are chilly, but overall not the worst conditions in the world. Now here we are for tonight. Our rainfall is starting to creep northward. By tomorrow morning, the rain's starting to move into Cape May about 8 a.m. Starts to expand northward by 11 a.m. Now, if you're looking just at 850 millibar temperatures, you might be saying to yourself, wow, this could be a really major winter storm for New Jersey and Philadelphia. And that would be true if this was December or January. But these 850 millibar temperatures do not correspond to temperatures below freezing this time of year. Instead, they correspond to the mid to upper 30s over the interior and lower to upper 40s as we move towards the coast. And oh, by the way, the Atlantic is still rather warm for this time of year, so that marine influence is going to matter even with a northeasterly wind, which we have right here. So we continue to move forward into the forecast, and let's get to about 2 p.m. Let's move to 5 p.m. because this is when the storm is really starting to get going here. And you can see that, if you just look at 850 millibar temperatures and mid-level temperatures, yeah, clearly there's support for snow in the air. Even down to the coast, if we get some enhanced lifting at the upper levels, you can see some of that rain change over to snow for a very short period of time. The problem is at the surface, your temperatures from most locations except for the extreme interior, which is northeastern Pennsylvania and northern New Jersey, like Sussex County, and portions of the of upstate New York here, well, those locations will fall to about 32 degrees. But otherwise, everyone else, including Connecticut, will be in the mid to upper 30s. Okay? Now, clearly chilly, a very chilly rainfall, but the point here is that none of these conditions here are conducive for snowfall accumulation. That's the problem here. The snow might fall in the air, but it's not going to be able to stick to the ground because the ground temperatures are just too warm. So we move forward into the evening hours. Now the sun's going to start to set, and this is where I expanded the forecast a little bit more into Connecticut because temperatures are going to be able to touch 32 degrees in portions of northwestern Connecticut, and that's going to allow for some snowfall accumulation. So I expanded 3 to 6 inches into Litchfield County. But otherwise, most of Connecticut will see almost next to nothing. You might see an inch or two of snow on grass in portions of central Connecticut. But again, look at these temperatures at the height of the storm. The storm's starting to pull away at this point at 11 p.m. Okay, it's moving away, and your coldest temperatures are basically at freezing over the highest portions of the interior, and the rest of the northern Atlantic is above freezing with a warm ground already in place. So these factors matter, okay? Your observations matter. It's not just about model guidance, it's also about observations, what type of environment you have in place right now. So let's take a look at the forecast map. This is what I'm forecasting for much of the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area and coastal plain, including portions of northeastern New Jersey below 500 feet. Looking for moderate to heavy rainfall. Rainfall amounts anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain. Strong winds 15 to 30 miles per hour from the northeast with gusts up to 45 miles per hour. Could see a few flurries mixed in at times, but no accumulation at all. The main impact from this storm is going to be very heavy rainfall. And by the way, the worst conditions will be from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. with poor driving conditions and poor visibility below a mile at times. Move a little bit more to the north and west towards locations like Lancaster, York, Allentown, up towards Danbury and Hartford in Connecticut. What I'm expecting is below 500 feet, mostly rain. Could mix with snow at times, but I don't expect much of any accumulation. Maybe a trace on some metal bars or whatnot. Above 500 feet, because we're starting to get into this hilly terrain, the rain will mix with snow and even change over to snow at times. Accumulations about a trace to an inch on your pavement. Could see maybe 2 inches on some grassy surfaces if you get some enhanced snowfall from a strong mid-level disturbance. But that's pretty much about it. And then you get into your real interior. We're talking about East Stratford, for example, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Hazleton, Sussex, New Jersey, up to northwestern Connecticut, Poughkeepsie, New York, those locations, the higher elevations. This is where we're going to see the most snow. Below 500 feet, again, some of your valleys, rain mixed with snow at times, little of any accumulation. from 500 to 1,000 feet, rain changing over to snow. 1 to 3 inches of snow looks like a good bet, especially on cold surfaces, but it's going to be difficult to accumulate on the roadways. And then over 1,000 feet, where you're closest to that cold pocket of air at the mid levels, the rain will change over to snow. Snowfall accumulations of 3 to 6 inches could be locally higher amounts where you get these really intense mesoscale banding features setting up. And it's going to be a very wet snowfall. So this snowfall combined with trees and leaves could create some down power outages and some trees being down. So just be careful of that. And also very slick conditions on the roadways. So that's the forecast for this storm. As you can see, I'm not exactly very aggressive with this idea of accumulated snowfall anywhere near the metropolitan areas or anywhere near the coastal plain. I don't see that happening at all. I don't see that happening for Newark. I don't see that happening for portions of the northeastern New Jersey metropolitan area of New York. You have to go to the higher interior and well away from the city in order to see those type of accumulations in northwestern New Jersey. As for the rest of the forecast, the good news is that we start to quiet down a bit after this storm leaves. The high pressure will build in for Sunday, and high pressure will be in control all the way into the middle of next week, with cool conditions still remaining intact, with temperatures averaging below normal in the mid 30s to lower 40s for lows, and basically the mid 50s, the upper 40s to upper 50s for highs. That's your forecast for this morning. Of course, you can follow the latest weather information on nynjpaweather.com and nynjpaweather on Twitter and Facebook. I'll have live coverage on this storm tomorrow morning starting at 8 a.m.